Coming up on Verse, Chorus, Verse, if either of you say anything mean about Lane Staley in the next 2 hours, I will reach through this camera and choke a bitch.
Drunkenly.
That's next. Welcome to episode 84 of Verse, Chorus, Verse. I am DL. With me is Rachel, the Rooster Snuffer Polio. Rachel.
It's true.
How are you? Really?
Maybe.
Killing lots of roosters, huh? How are you is the question I was trying to ask.
I'm good. A little warm, but great.
Also here tonight is Evil Sick Man Jimmy. Evil, how are you?
I'm also hot. It's hot and it's humid in Boise, which is unusual for Boise, and I hate it.
I feel like you have good AC. You've got a long sleeve shirt on here.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because I'm inside because I'm not stupid.
Well, sorry that we aren't all rich and can afford
Whoa.
your amazing AC. What's everybody doing this Friday night? Recording a
Just hanging
podcast
out.
episode?
Yeah. What are you
Yeah.
doing?
What are we going to talk about? Something?
Music.
Anything good?
Yeah, whatever. It's whatever. I don't even care. I'm not even really, I won't be upset whatever is talked about tonight and whether people are positive or negative about it. It doesn't
You
bug me
seem-
at all.
Like you're real sensitive about this topic.
No, I don't care.
You're real fun right now.
I know. So, hi everybody. I went out at about about 4 today and went to the Margarita Factory. Had me a big old. Rachel has talked about this before. They say, "Do you want small, medium, or large?" I'm like, "I'll go medium margarita." Yeah, the medium is a fucking fishbowl, basically. It's ridiculous. And then you have to have a tequila sipper, and then somebody maybe gets a shot, and I'm just feeling pretty good. I'm really going for the drunkest in an episode award tonight.
You're getting it.
Rachel, you had a couple. I think you might still hold the record for the pre-season.
Yeah.
In the Spotify ones. Like,
Yeah.
you were good and toasted.
Is
on
that when
those.
Elaine was like, this is a drinking podcast with a little bit of music?
Yeah.
Son of a...
It's very funny because my mom should know that I drink so much more than you do, Rachel. Tonight is a DL 10 out of 10 episode. It's all coming because next week we are doing a year dissection. And typically when I do a year dissection, what I try to do is I try to take one album that might take a lot of the conversation and just...
I'm sorry.
really hard to concentrate when Rachel is fanning her pits.
I could smell it from here.
So hot. Fuck off, Jimmy.
I try to take an album that's going to take up most of the conversation or a lot of the conversation, and we just talk about it beforehand. Evil, I know that you must have been at least very comfortable with this album.
Yeah.
Rachel, did you know this album at all?
I did know some of this album, actually, from movies that the songs were in and also from Guitar Hero.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah.
Evil, I actually don't know this about you. I know what type of music you are a fan of, but I don't think I've ever just come out and asked you, how big of a fan of this band are you?
So have we mentioned the year yet?
We have not mentioned the year.
Okay.
I think they're going to figure it out
They're
soon.
going to figure it out pretty quickly. So this predates my full conversion into metal-headedness, I would say. This is a very special era of music for me. I'm trying to use vague terms here.
It's so goddamn hard.
Of the bands
That's what she
that were familiar or cohorts of who we're going to talk about tonight, there are two that most people would probably pick from the era. And I was a big fan of the other two.
This is so vague.
Yeah. I know.
I thought I understood exactly where you were going until you pulled that last.
So how old were you?
This came out my junior year of high school.
Okay. So
it-
you were
it's-
pretty
it-
into music at this
wow.
point.
Very,
Yeah.
very, like this is
Gotcha.
like wheelhouse. Like
Yeah.
part of prepping for this, I sent you guys some pictures. I sat in a dark room and watched the music videos for all of the singles from this album. It put me back in a place unlike
Yeah.
anything else has done researching for this podcast.
That's awesome.
You didn't do heroin, did you?
You know, I mean,
Okay. Yeah. Night is young. So yeah, we are doing one of my favorite albums of all time. It's kind of a big punch to do in the second season, but I don't care. We're doing it. I think I would, and I'm going to go back to you, Evil, but I would probably consider this one of the, I don't know if you want to say best, but at the very least, most celebrated, heavier albums of all time.
yeah, for sure. Hugely influential.
I listened to this album probably more than I've ever listened to another album. And even now, going back and studying it, because it's not the type of album like you can't listen to this all the time.
No.
But you know it like the back of your hand, but then you go and you study and it's like, holy shit, every single one of these songs was on MTV
Duh. Yeah.
on the hour.
Yep.
Half this album. Rachel, you were an MTV kid.
Yes.
So did you see these videos?
I don't remember seeing these videos. These are the videos that would kind of scare me a little bit. So I probably would have turned it off if I had seen it. But
Once Lane's eyes started rolling into the back of his head, you were out.
Definitely some headbangers ball material here.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh man, this is going to be a fun episode.
Yeah.
oh, nostalgia.
We're going to get into that. First, what we got to actually, we don't have to get into anything. I can do whatever I want. This is our podcast. Evil 2022 releases.
Yeah.
Awesome or daunting so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
Both of
Fair.
those. Oh my
Is it
God.
true that every single band is just coming out with an album this
I
year?
honestly think that every band that I'm a huge fan of that is still alive and putting out music has something coming out this year.
It's gotten unhealthy. It's really good for the podcast communication, but the pressure
It's a
from
lot.
that. Rachel, have you gotten to start listening to newer music this year?
I mean, as far as new music that I've gotten to listen to, obviously I have quickfire stuff.
I forgot we do quick fires.
We do quickfires. Not anywhere near your level, I'm sure, but there's definitely people who are like, hey, have you heard this album?
Speaking of listeners, this is very awesome. The first thing I want to do is I need to give a shout out to Carrie Kirkland. She's coming back next season. She's got a new album coming out next year, and I just love her. So she's coming back on. But she helped me solidify a guest for next year, and I can't say who it is, but there's one person on this podcast that is going to shit his or her pants when they find out who it is. And she is 99.9% the reason for it. So, Carrie, you are amazing.
What is that?
It's an In-N-Out burger.
Wait, there's an In-N-Out in Idaho Falls?
No, there's not. There's a handful in Utah, just out of across the border. And
So excited to edit out you eating a hamburger
Oh, it's fine.
of this episode. That's really, really exciting to me. Anyway, Carrie, thank you. You're amazing. I haven't told any of the cast members here who they get to interview next year, but
Yeah, you just tease us every.
I
Oh
do.
boy,
And it's so fun.
when you find out,
And then I got one more email that I want to share with all of you, and we can speak to it or not. It doesn't matter, but I just really liked this one. I thought this one meant a lot. Jeez, this is so hard right now. Okay, I'm about to read this meaningful email now.
Meanwhile, Rachel's a live Carl's Jr. commercial over here for.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And twins. All right. Hey, DL and whoever else reads this, I wanted to say thank you for the way you do these podcasts every week. I am a younger guy in my 20s and have had a rough time over the last few years. I'm realizing that a lot of rough times have been my fault. The way that all of you talk about people that mess up in an understanding way makes me feel less like a loser. Mondays are the best part of my week. Hope the podcast goes forever. And thank you again, Jay from Iowa City. Yeah.
What a man.
I give me chills. That's
Yeah, that one really, really meant something to me. Jay, I'm going to tell you something right now, and I'm going to kind of really toot my own horn for a second, but I promise it's going somewhere. I am a pretty successful guy. I have a great job. I have a house. I'm doing very, very well. I'm a good father. I've got this awesome podcast, working hard. I'm doing really good things. But Jay, just so you know, most of my life, I was a fairly big piece of shit. And I did a lot of not great things in my life. I'll just say that. I just remember thinking a lot of times in my 20s, like, this is just who I am. I'm just this person. And it's not true. You can become whoever the fuck you want to be at any point that you want. I think the fact that you sent this email speaks a lot about you want to do what you're going to do. And thank you for sending that. And I think you're well on your way, man.
It's rare for a human to live life without having a lot of ups and probably even more downs.
Yeah.
And honestly, guilty as charged. The good times are awesome when you're living them. The lows, those dark times those are the learning opportunities. Mm-hmm. And those are the things that I've been the most thankful for, because pressure creates diamonds, man. Life's a beautiful tapestry. Some of it's ugly, and it's still beautiful, even though it's ugly and dark sometimes. And we're going to talk about that here pretty soon.
Yeah.
It makes me really happy that somebody sees that in us. We are very understanding that everybody makes mistakes, and those don't define who you are as a person. All of us here have very good hearts, and it makes me really happy that people can look beyond all of our jokes and our judgment of music, see the best in people. And so,
Jay, that means I promise you that however much the podcast means to you listening every Monday, this email meant just as much to us getting it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope you keep listening. You ever want to come on and chat about an album with us? Hey, you are more than welcome. Here's what we're doing tonight, everybody.
There's a hair in my drink.
There's a hair in Evil's drink. Rachel's mouth is full of burger. This is a goddamn shit show. I wouldn't have it any other way. Look, next week we are dissecting 1992. It's a hair, Evil.
I'm listening, but
I get you freaked out because it's definitely not yours, but
Because he doesn't have any hair.
this was a lot of fun. Even though we're dealing with some really dark material here, it was still very enjoyable for me. I'm still deep in prep for the episode coming up next week, which I'm a little nervous for because it's even more daunting. But this one, this one was my favorite single album review that we've done.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. A lot of nostalgia for me here. So
there are certain aspects of this one that, of course, for me, it's an obvious, this meant a fucking lot to me. I want to go to you, though, Rachel. Mm-hmm. Like you just said, you didn't really hear it on MTV or things like that.
No.
So this didn't have some weird special place for you. So without trying to give too much away, where does this stand in the, we've done Peter Gabriel, mm-hmm. we've done the Gorillaz, mm-hmm. we've done 4 or 5, 10 out of 10s mm-hmm. by now?
Yeah.
Where does this stand in that pantheon?
This is the top. Hands down.
Holy shit.
Not to give too much away.
Okay, let me go and... I feel like I have to reassess everything.
Change a couple things.
Now.
Was Joy Division a 10 out of 10?
That was a whole
Joy Division was a band dissection.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. How does Evil know and you don't?
2 albums. I think that's why in my head.
It may be throwing you off because I have the Joy Division here.
I have something.
Okay. I love this.
This is just for us. This isn't for the poor listeners who don't see where we're at.
Aww.
When we record these episodes, we're all on Zoom seeing each other. I have like a blank wall behind me. I have an office in the front of our house, but it just has a big open door. It doesn't have a door that shuts. It's just a big opening that goes into the office. So it's kind of hard to...
And they also can't see Rachel going down on a hamburger every 17 seconds.
That's true.
There is that.
Okay, go ahead.
Everyone else has like band swag behind them, pictures of their favorite artists and stuff, albums. Yeah. I'm going to be moving my office into the room that I record in. And at some point I'll have all of the medals and the Van Halens behind me and
drink.
Yeah. Trust me. We're going to talk about Van Halen tonight too.
Drink.
There's reasons for that.
Yes.
So I got a little Buffalo Trace.
Mm-hmm. Wait, well man.
That's not my drink. That's just Van Halen.
That's for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
Let's get to that though, you guys.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's stop talking about what I've already drank tonight and let's get to
what I'm gonna drink.
The most important part of the night. What are we drinking tonight? Rachel, what do you have?
Oh gosh, what do I have? I was talking to Gus earlier because of one of these songs.
Oh,
I needed to call
Yep.
Gus. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
And he said, "So, what are you drinking tonight?"
Oh, that's cute.
Listen, thanks, Dad.
That is. I like that.
Isn't that nice?
That's awesome.
So I actually just took my drink that I was drinking before and then put vodka in it. So it's sherbet flavored Rain, which is a energy drink. It's half Rain, half Sprite, and some raspberry syrup.
Sherbet.
And
Sherbet's
Smurf.
not a flavor.
No.
It's like 3 flavors.
Evil, what do you got?
I sent this recipe to you earlier this week. It's a take on an old fashioned.
Yes, you did.
It's a little lighter because it's summer. I usually make an old fashioned with bourbon, usually Buffalo Trace or something similar, Angostura bitters, simple syrup, and orange peel. This uses Peychaud's. Well, I got Buffalo Trace, Peychaud's bitters. Instead of Demerara sugar or simple syrup, I just used regular because it's a little brighter, and a lemon. It's like a lighter, more refreshing old fashioned.
Awesome.
Yeah. Since it's so hot outside of my air conditioned house.
Fuck off. Dave, do you have air conditioning?
No. So I have, it looks like you have, I have window units. Down in my studio, I don't have one.
Is that in the basement?
Yes.
Oh, so you're cooler.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Like I'm sweaty, but I'm not, I'm going to die. What am I drinking?
What are you drinking?
Evil. I just can't get enough. Yeah.
Ooh.
You know what this is.
Is that a Scotch lady?
Yes.
Yeah, those look good, aren't they? You don't have any cop drops in you
I don't.
for this one.
And it's amazing.
Does
Yeah.
that change
good.
the flavor?
Yeah, a little bit.
It is. So it's going to take me a while to play around with it to get it to my liking. But
Sure.
you are very right in that it is on par with a whiskey sour.
Yeah.
And
It's in the ballpark
Yes.
and it's a little more complex.
it's amazing. And then I also have for the second half of the night or whenever I'm done with this drink or whatever, I've got just a Scotch, plain old Glenlivet 18 Scotch.
Oh, yeah. Just
It's whatever. You're going to be wasted.
table Scotch.
Yeah, it's whatever. We are talking a pretty important album to me, so I gotta have it a Scotch. We've got to get to this album. We've got plenty to talk about. All of it fun and light and rosy. We're gonna take a break. We'll be right back. We are back. Yeah.
She's honking a toy. Get out of
The
here.
timing. Is that the dog that clicks your pens and
Eats burgers. Yes.
DL's 10 out of 10s? You know what we're talking about tonight? I'm sure you all do, but I'm still going to just say the name. We are talking about Dirt by Alice in Chains. Dirt, released September of 1992. It's like 3 different studios, but in the end, it's Columbia. It was produced by Alice in Chains and Dave Jordan. For those of you that don't know Dave Jordan, you should probably learn about Dave Jordan. He did tons of shit: Fishbone, Anthrax, Offspring, Rolling Stones, Frank Zappa, Mick Jagger, David Byrne. I could go on without breathing for a while. He's done everybody. And if you listen to, 7 seconds of Dirt, you know how good of an engineer he is.
Yeah. There was one other producer on Wood, was produced by Rick Parashar. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I think that was still engineered by Jordan.
It was, and I don't know that much about Dave Jordan except for the fact that he doesn't like to be called a producer. He likes to be called an engineer, which is important to know for the day that he comes on our podcast, which
Yes.
someday I'm going to make happen. God damn it. It ended up, actually, does anybody know the amount of platinums it is without cheating, Rachel?
No, I won't look. I know it's some platinums.
Take a guess.
I have no idea.
I'll say 5.
6.
Is this Price is Right? What the?
I'm going to go with 7.
It's 5.
Fuck.
Is it 5?
It is.
Ooh,
Certified 5 times platinum as of this year.
Whoa.
so many times.
Yeah.
I swear I didn't look. That was,
Good job. Singles on this album. There are many.
Just a few.
Yes. Wood.
Speaking of singles,
Them Bones. Speaking of singles. Angry Chair, Rooster, and Down in a Hole.
I just got that.
Keep up. I'm going to start with Rachel. Rachel, somebody who was maybe not brand new to Dirt, but I would say definitely probably the first time that you ever sat down and listened to this album.
For sure. My first impression was Man, every song sounds exactly the same, but it was one of those things, enough exposure, Stockholm's, and now I love it.
You know, that throws me off because you always start texting me about the album on Thursday night. So I think like, she just started fucking listening to this.
Here's the thing. I know that you get angry when I try and engage in conversation with you with what we're going to talk about. So I try and minimize how long you're going to be mad at me for. So I wait until Thursday night.
This sounds familiar.
Before we get into it, we have to guess what each other's favorite song on the album is.
Yeah. That's a thing we do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we do that
Oops.
all the time at the beginning without fail.
There is order in this chaos.
There is. I don't think I've ever started with Evil.
Oh,
Evil, what are Rachel and I's favorite songs on this album?
I usually like wing it when you ask these questions. I actually wrote stuff down. I just got to find my notes.
Good for you.
I have a heart on.
Rachel, I wrote down in a hole. And for you, I wrote, fuck, I don't know how to pick.
I accept both those answers.
Yes. But I actually put forth the effort beforehand instead of scrambling at the last minute this time.
Yay.
I like it. Rachel.
This was difficult as well because you love Alice in Chains.
They're okay.
But I picked Angry Chair for you, David, and I picked Sick Man for Evil.
Oh,
Were those good guesses?
Those are all good guesses.
we shall see. My picks. You know what? I'm going to start with Rachel and then I'm going to say Evils and then that'll lead us into a conversation. Rachel, there was an easy answer to me.
What's the easy answer?
The easy way out for you was Wood. Beautiful song, extremely well written, lots of things that I would think that you would be a fan of. Too easy. So what I did is I picked a song that I think had about 72 things that you wouldn't really love about it. But
one thing that I would.
that I think you would totally love about it. I said your favorite song on this album is Hate to Feel.
Ooh.
Evil, and this is just going to start the conversation now. I said that your favorite song is Them Bones. The reason I said your favorite song is Them Bones is because it's one of the best rock songs ever written. It is the 12 Angry Men of music. It is fucking whatever it is, 3 minutes and whatever seconds. There is no fat on that meat.
No.
It is start out the gate, you rip fucking thunder with Lane Staley screaming his eyes and Jerry doing his insane C-sharp guitar to go directly from the verse into the chorus. You do one of the coolest fucking guitar solos ever. Chorus 3 more times in a very cool way. You're out. Done. Bam. See you later. Evil, is that your favorite song?
So now that we have things out of the way, I can actually make a case for what I think might be Rachel's actual favorite song, which is Rooster. And
It was kind of hard to pick my favorite song. So none of these are bad guesses.
well, I wanted to get you guys on the record before I actually put my real thoughts out there. What a way to start an album.
One of the best opening rock tracks of all time, right?
Yeah. This is interesting because the last track on this album is Wood, and that's an opening track for the single soundtrack,
Yes.
which was probably the gateway for a lot of people at that time into Alice in Chains.
Yeah. That and the fact that Man in the Box was playing 4
Yeah,
times
sure.
an hour
Yeah,
on
yeah,
MTV.
there's that
But
too.
No, you're absolutely right.
It starts with, to use the parlance of our time, a fucking banger, and ends with a killer opening track for another album that was huge at the time. I mean, those are the bookends to this,
Yes.
and everything in between is fucking amazing. And there's a song in the middle that I have a whole page of notes on that we'll talk about.
Ooh. I just listened to it in the car a couple times, listened to it while I was cooking. And when I sat down and looked at the lyrics and really dug into them and their meaning and all of that is when I was really just blown away by this whole album, not let alone, the opening track.
That's one of the biggest things. No, that is the biggest thing about this album is I am a big fan of albums that tell a story, that try to make a point and have something to say. I am not sure that an album has ever been made that conveys the torture and darkness of addiction than this one does. The only equivalency lyrically of somebody saying, look at the fucking pain I'm in, I think Joy Division might be the only equivalency. Everybody wants to add their 2 cents.
I think it's close. I don't want to argue. Joy Division's close, but I don't think it comes. It's like right here. It's like very close, but this is better.
I feel so alone, gonna end up a big old pile of them bones. Mm-hmm. There's something about that fucking line. There are fucking 83 lines in this that Lane Staley says that I can't imagine being able to write.
I'm going to counter that a little bit. Some of my favorite lyrics were written by Cantrell, but
yes.
Staley's performance of them, I think, is his performance of lyrics. You can feel his pain. And we all know what he was going through at the time.
Do tell.
Yes. So let's talk about Van Halen a little bit. So in 1991, yeah, I got the drink here. In 1991, one of my favorite. I don't know what
They're
I'm
fine.
doing. They took Alice in Chains out as their opener.
Yeah, they did.
In part because they were a little scared of this new crop of rock coming up, and they're like, ugh. And they became really good friends.
I'm going to let you keep going, but that was the perfect band to go out with Van Halen because they loved that shit.
Yes,
they were
big
80s.
fans.
Like you listen to their late 80s stuff, and Alice in Chains was totally into that fucking hair metal stuff.
Yeah, 100%. So on that tour is when Lane and I think Mike Starr developed heroin addiction. They chose poorly for their bodies, maybe greatly for the lyrics and the artistic content that came out of it. I mean, that's the weird conundrum here. There's something about that drug and the art that it inspires. That's undeniable. It really is.
It is.
I would never say, hey, do you want to be a good artist, a good musician? Go try some heroin.
Yeah.
Ask Bradley Knowles how that turns out, because he literally did that.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to start doing heroin so I can play music like Nirvana.
Exactly.
By the time this album came out, Lane was deep in struggling with his addiction. That is reflected by everything about this album. The lyrics, his performance, the way he looks in the videos.
Oh,
like,
God.
It's heart-wrenching.
It is.
Heartbreaking is the wrong word. It's heart-wrenching to watch it, because there's a piece of me that when I sat down and watched all the videos, I'm like, I fucking love this music. It wasn't heartbreaking to me. It was heart-wrenching because it pulled me back into a time where I was deeply a fan of what was going on musically. It's the weird dichotomy of like, I love experiencing the pain that this human is going through and emoting to me, while at the same time, I mean, he wound up dead because of it. So it didn't serve him well at all. I feel guilty for that a little bit.
I think one of the fascinating things about Lane, and one of the things that makes it still enjoyable, is that he was aware of what you're talking about.
Yes.
He was, in his interviews, he was very, heroin is the worst thing that you could ever do. Please don't do it.
Right.
I am going to do it until I die.
Yeah.
So he was very cognizant of that. I think that's what makes it bearable, and it's also eerie about this album, is because in this album and the next album, he was very, I'm already gone. I'm done. I'm dead. This is an SOS. Hey, kids, don't fucking do heroin.
The bass player,
Mike
Starr, on that tour with Van Halen, he was caught at least once, maybe multiple times, scalping tickets for drug money. The opening band is out scalping tickets so he can go score more smack. What in the fuck?
Fucking crazy. 2 episodes ago, I did an episode on Mark Lanigan. Mark had a huge relationship with Lane.
Yeah.
I talked a lot about the relationship of heroin in the early 90s in the whole Northwest scene. There were just these guys that were going to play brilliant shit, and then they were going to go lock themselves up in an apartment, and they were going to use until they died. That was pretty much it. And this album, it sounds perverse to say, but it caught Lane in the perfect time where he was deep in this addiction and he knew he wasn't going to get out, but he wasn't so far out that he couldn't still absolutely make an incredible piece of art.
Well, and also he was in a sweet spot of not too deep and still being able to explain what it does, how it makes you feel.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people that are super on drugs can't really pinpoint why they're doing what they're doing. He, through his lyrics, was really able to make us understand why he couldn't stop.
Evil. Do you know who did the vocals on Iron Gland?
I do.
I knew you did.
I do.
Who was that?
Well, it turns out that before they toured with Van Halen, they toured on I think it was a metal festival.
Yeah.
And Slayer happened to be on that metal festival. It was Tom Araya from Slayer, who they were hugely into at this point. This album, spoiler alert, might have been influenced by Slayer a little bit, seeing that Tom Araya was on one track. There is a connection between the Seattle scene that we all know of, the grunge scene from the 90s, and kind of the LA harder rock heavy metal scene. They went out to like Joshua Tree with Tom Araya at some point in the middle of recording this album, which happened to be right smack dab in the middle of the Rodney King riots.
Yep.
And they actually had to stop recording. Things were so bad. And that's when they went off to Joshua Tree. So yes, to answer your question, I do know who. When this was going down, Jerry Cantrell was at a store buying beer, and some dude just came in and started looting the store.
Yeah.
Like, what the Not only was this album influenced by the struggles of the band and the substance abuse, but it was influenced by tumultuous scene of the culture of the time as well. It was in the middle of a very interesting time. Like, there was a curfew in LA at the time.
Right, there was.
And Lane would like break it and go out and score drugs, you know.
It's not like Mike Starr and Lane Staley were. Look, Mike Starr and Lane Staley were massive addicts at this point. But it's not like fucking Kenny Cantrell were fucking Boy Scouts.
No, no.
They were alcoholics, coke addicts. They just weren't addicted to heroin.
Right.
Which is the thing that kills you.
Yeah.
The reason that this band was so beloved by everyone was because it was still liked by the metal guys.
Yeah.
But it also was still loved by the grunge dudes.
Yes.
If you've seen the movie Singles, Alice in Chains is in that movie.
Right.
At the fucking, the main characters are at a concert watching fucking Alice in Chains play, and it's fucking awesome. So it's totally this hipster grunge, but at the same time, it's very metal.
Yep.
No, I love that movie.
Big fan?
Big fan. They did such a great job of integrating metal into grunge and like kind of towing that line that both parties could find something in there that they could relate to and wanted to listen to.
I was alluding to like the grunge scene early on where I'm like, these two bands people liked and these other two bands were the ones that I like. Nirvana and Pearl Jam are probably the two bands that people would pick. If you say grunge, they're going to be like Nirvana, Pearl Jam.
Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden.
Sure.
Those are like the those are the
four.
Yeah.
Those are the big four. I was very much more an Alice in Chains and Soundgarden guy at the time.
Because you're smart.
And those two bands have a deeper connection to the metal scene, the harder rock scene, the LA stuff that was going on at the time, the desert sessions like Caius and Lanigan. And there was more cross-pollination with those two than
Tad.
Right. I have an interesting note on Susan Silver. I'll hold off on that because I want to go off on a song when we get to it.
Rachel, last night I told you to make sure to watch the full music video of Rooster. And
I did.
You watched it.
I did.
And you also just mentioned your dad.
Before she starts, that was the best segue fucking ever. Continue, please.
Also, you'll be happy to know that when I called my dad today, he said, "What's that song called again? I'll have to look it up." And so he watched the video. Word spreading. I don't know. He hasn't called back about it.
Oh, fuck, man.
I also told him I'd send him the link, and he's like, "No, I can find it." And I was like,
"Come on, Gus.
Just let me do it." He's like, "I can do this, but all I have to do is put it in the search bar." And I was like, "But I can just Rooster." I loved it. And then I called my dad, and then so when I researched what they were meaning by that, it was a nickname for an M60 machine gunner because the muzzle flash looked like a rooster's tail. Specifically, like every fifth shot in the M60 had a tracer, so it had a phosphorus that like flew out with it, and so that flash made it look like a rooster tail. So that's what it was. But also snuffing the rooster, you're killing the guy with the most power, like the most powerful gun, the best machinery. If you get that guy, you can move in and get everybody else. And so
Did you catch who the gunner was, though?
in the video, well, I knew
He is the
I knew
rooster.
that it was
His nickname was the Rooster.
I knew it was in relation to his dad, but I don't know that I connected that his dad
But doesn't that make it this much more badass?
Yeah, it does. It really does.
That was a nickname that Cantrell's dad got from, I believe, his dad. So Cantrell's grandfather, when Jerry Cantrell Sr. was a pretty young
I didn't
kid,
know that
because he
either.
had
Now that makes
he
it
had like a
Even better.
high tuft of hair and he was super cocky, and so that nickname when he was a little kid, and then went off to war at
That just
Vietnam.
reiterated.
There's the whole M60 gunner
Yeah.
connection. There's also a connection the Vietnamese would call the 101st Airborne Chicken Men, because the Screaming Eagle patch they wore, they don't have bald eagles in Vietnam, so they called them Chicken Men.
Losers.
There's like layers of meaning behind this song.
The beginning of that video, the first couple times I watched it while I was studying for it, I was like, I kind of wish they would do just the videos of Jerry and his dad walking around their farm and stuff.
Yeah.
The black and white thing. I wish it would have been the whole thing. But then after I thought about it, it was actually last night. I was in an airport with a fucking delay. Fuck you, airports lately. And I was watching the video again, and I was like, you know what? That little like 40 seconds or a minute long, where they end on the real short stint of Jerry Cantrell's dad, where he's like,
emotional.
that's all I want to say about that. And then you see him barely start to choke up, and then the music starts. That's like you said, that's heart wrenching.
This is one of my favorite songs of all time.
Oh,
I have a page and a half of notes on just this song.
Sounds right.
This is the song that connected me to this band. I was a fan of them, but this was the song where I was like, oh my God. I don't know if culturally we realize how much weight that war weighed on the American psyche because of the subsequent military stuff that we've been involved in since then.
So yeah, I feel like the Afghan war is kind of
sort of
taken
like
the place
overshadowed it. But in the mid late 80s, early 90s, Vietnam was a war that we lost as a country.
Yep.
The soldiers who were fucking drafted to go over there, they didn't have a choice. That's
Right.
kids
Put through torture.
were drafted.
Yeah.
Came back and were vilified by their home country.
Then forgotten.
There were certain movies at the time that were kind of addressed this, like Platoon was a big one. The director for the music video, The Rooster, Mark Pellington, who also directed Pearl Jam's video, Jeremy, he consulted with Oliver Stone's military advisor for some of the action scenes and stuff for this. I remember at the time I was, a teenager, but still pretty young. And I was like kind of trying to sort through Vietnam. And then it sort of got pushed aside because we got involved in these other military altercations. I don't know if it's fair to the humans. They're human beings who were sent over there to fight. Many of them died. When my parents divorced, my mom dated this guy for a while. His name was Tony. And he went to Vietnam when he was 17 years old. And he got lost in the jungle and survived and killed people to survive at 17. He struggled with that he might still, I don't know.
How the fuck could you not? How could you ever get over that?
I have a personal connection to this song. I don't want to make this whole podcast about the Rooster, but fucking A, man. This is one of the greatest songs that's ever been recorded, in my opinion. I fucking love this song.
Can I change my answer on what Jimmy's favorite song is?
Oh yeah, fuck.
I think it might be the Rooster.
It might be.
It's insane that it seems like every fucking song is, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Death is inevitable. Heroin, heroin, heroin. You know what? I'm gonna change the subject for a song. Vietnam Rooster.
Yeah.
Fucking yeah. Okay, let's go back to heroin now.
Well, and
for fuck's sake,
and to go
man.
back to what I was saying about, like, this was a Cantrell song. He wrote this song.
Yes.
But
yeah, it's his dad.
it would not be what it is without Lane's performance.
Oh, for sure.
Lane somehow channeled his pain into the performance of this song in a way that I don't think anyone else could have.
Speaking as a huge Alice in Chains guy my whole life, always being much more of a Lane guy than a Jerry guy, It's very, very akin to the way people are with John Lennon and Paul McCartney. People fucking love John Lennon. They worship John Lennon. He's the God King. And Paul is always kind of like the steadfast, boring, whatever. But the bottom line is if it wasn't for Paul McCartney, 90% of those songs would have never got finished. And that's how I see Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
Yep.
Lane Staley might have been the talent or whatever you want to call it. Not to say Jerry wasn't incredibly fucking talented, but Jerry was the one that kept the ship steady to make sure that they could write shit like this. This album would have never fucking happened.
Right.
Lane would have been in his fucking apartment.
Yeah, it would have been a mess.
And that's not even talking about the fact that Jerry Cantrell, you said it, Evil, the guy could write a fucking song. Holy shit.
He wrote this while he was living with Chris Cornell and Cornell's girlfriend, who he eventually married, whose name was Susan Silver, who was a manager who managed, among other things, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and Screaming Trees.
Oh my.
You know, just a few bands. She was also a manager of a shoe store that sold Doc Martens.
Hey. So she sold a lot of heroin and a lot of boots.
One of the guys that worked for her is the singer for Candlebox at that shoe store.
A lot of heroin. A lot of heroin. Lane was not doing well at this point. And there are so many stories about the Dirt recording where he's fading off on the couch and they can't get him to do this and that because he's so strung out and all this shit, and he's not showing up and then he's showing up. Lane Staley lived for fucking 10 years after this. He went to rehab a couple times.
A bunch of times. I think it was in the teens.
He did Mad Season, which that's another conversation for another night, which was essentially just a whole group made up of a bunch of fucking rehabbers.
My pain is self-chosen.
And you listen to this album and you say, well, this guy died of heroin. Well, yeah, fucking course he did. 10 years later. Wait, what? The amount of pain he must have had to endure for that amount of time is disturbing.
Some of the stories about the recording process, the vocal layering that we kind of identify with Alice in Chains, he came up with that when in the recording sessions for the singles soundtrack. And Wood was the big song. You know what I'm talking about, like the harmonies.
Do we get to talk about Lane Staley's harmonies now?
His vocals. Yeah.
Oh,
well,
hard on again.
Hold on. Before we go there, let me pick up one more thing. In the recording process for one of the videos, he had a cowboy hat he wanted to wear, but the director was like, no, sunglasses. You look more badass. And then
because he was so strung out.
Exactly. But then you see him with sunglasses from then on. This was the album where he's like, I don't want people to watch me sing. And so he like basically demanded that they create this soundproof box for him to sing in. And in it, he had this little mini shrine with candles, a picture of the Last Supper, and a fucking dead puppy in a jar. That's where this guy's mindset was.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
That's where he was. I mean, that's
a little out of it.
Dude, like what?
Something I did want to note, this was very true about most of the songs lyrically. The imagery is insane.
Yeah.
Like it says, eyes burned stinging with sweat and got my pills against mosquito death. My buddy's breathing his dying breath. They're amazing. They paint this picture and put you in the space of Vietnam. It's probably one of the best songs ever written. Am I right, Jimmy?
I think it is. So I noticed this like late in the game. There's a weird little storytelling trick they do lyrically where the verses are first person and the chorus is third person. And that's fucking genius.
Guys, I'm so fucking tired of talking about Vietnam. Can we please talk about heroin?
Yes, please. Let's lighten it up a little bit.
I'm so sick of this shit.
So my grandfather, I went to go see Rent with him when I was 17. And
AIDS.
And we walk out and he goes, it was all about sex and AIDS, wasn't it? And I was like, oh God, Grandpa.
Oh my God, I love that guy.
There's so many more layers.
Oh my God.
There really aren't. That's pretty much what it's about. He was dead on.
Spot on. This seems like it's just all about heroin, isn't it? But there's a Vietnam song, one. And two, I feel like he hit so many angles of addiction. And it also seems like a process because by the time he gets down to wood, it seems more of like a warning than it does. I love heroin.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was what this album was about. Is this isn't a glamorization. Don't do fucking heroin. This is fucking terror.
Here's the thing about that, though. You can say as much as you want, and this is not their fault, and I am not putting this on them at all. You can say as much as you want, don't do heroin, but you can also be a rock star, be out of your mind all of the time, not die for 10 years after this album.
Yeah.
And it's going to glamorize it. Even if you're saying the exact opposite, people are going to see your life and see how great
Well,
it is with heroin. Fight me.
I think you're right. Here's the thing is, glamorize his life from like 93 to his death. He was literally in his condo playing video games at 95 pounds, emaciated and dying. Like he did not have a fucking rock star life.
At the time of this album, though, glamorizes it during this period of time. This is right when heroin chic started happening, and everybody was doing it, and it was, you know, as much as it was killing people, it was a cool way to die.
Yeah. I've seen Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
No shit.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was a tough movie.
That was not an easy watch.
Nope.
This came out in 92. I was 10. That is way too young to be into this music.
But alas,
But here's the thing. I was going through, I'm not just saying that I had like a terrible fucking childhood. I had a good family, but I did. I had a lot of some very bad shit happen to me. And this album was the first time I had ever heard somebody's pain come through. Also, there were a lot of, and I'm not saying anything bad about Christianity or anything like that. I'm honestly not, I think highly of a lot of Christians. But this was also the first band that I had ever heard, I don't want to say chastise Christianity, but speak to the fact that there was evil inside certain pockets of it. Those two things I needed more than anybody could possibly imagine. And so while I do agree with you that there was this, not glamorization, but there was this aspect of Lane Staley is sounding like this and doing heroin, God, I want to do it. There was also this aspect of people like me that just needed to hear somebody else going through what he was going through. It really, really fucking helped me at a time when I needed help. And yes, I was way too young to be listening to this, way too young. But I can't explain it. It fucking helped me. Next time on Verse, Chorus, Verse.
Oh, man.
Rachel, you want a drink?
Cheers.
Yeah, there you go. This album certainly aims for the nuts, doesn't it? We haven't even talked about how fucking absurd the drums are in this album.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Evil, go ahead. Take something.
Them's are some Metallica drums. Like literally.
Careful.
I'm not even. No. The recording process that they used, they picked up from the Black Album recording.
Yes.
They recorded it in the same studio as the Black Album.
It's like Lars if he was talented.
Yeah, exactly. They used the same like technique where they like routed it through this big subwoofer, and one of the quotes is it sounded like artillery going off in the studio, and they used some of the tricks used in the recording of the Black Album to get that drum sound, and it's fucking huge.
That's what she said.
And the bass too. My God, like
Okay, we got to do it. Let's talk about Wood. Let's talk about the musicality in Wood. First of all, one of the most understated, amazing bass lines of all time. It was funny. We were doing the bass episode, Svend and I were, and I gave him, I don't remember who I gave him versus Wood, like a bass line versus Wood. And he, split second, it's like Wood.
wow.
And I was a little bit surprised because Wood is not a technically savvy
but
bass line.
it's so
But it
dirty,
hits.
man.
And that's exactly what he said. It is one of the dirtiest, fucking coolest bass lines I've ever heard.
Dude.
And
it starts the song that
and then you have, okay, musician, if there's any young people out there listening to this, which there aren't, there just aren't. You're all old fucking people like us. But
Probably true.
wood is such an amazing lesson in how well space can build your guitar sound. Because the guitar it's so calm and it's so spacey. When it needs to be there, it's there. And when it's not, it's not.
There's tension in this song.
Yes.
That builds up.
It's so good. And then I don't know if either of you caught this, but it's one of my favorite fucking drum things ever. At the end of Wood, I'm glad Evil caught it. At the end of Wood, when they're doing the "Am I Wrong? Have I Gone Too Far to Get Home?" which is one of the best rock parts of a song ever in the history of anything. There are
when he's dragging through the
there are three separate drum fills. He's snare to tom, he's tom to snare to tom, and then he's doing the do.
Dude,
There's three of the best drum fills of all time. Wood is the construction of a perfect fucking rock song.
The second half of this album, it starts with Junkhead a little bit, and it's almost celebratory of the heroin use. And then it fucking dives
hard
and culminates in Angry Chair, which is the opposite.
The hardest of the hard.
Right. And then Wood is like the coda, and it's like a song about fucking Andrew Wood, who, if you don't know, listeners, was the singer of Mother Love Bone, the band that preceded...
How dare you if you don't know.
Yeah, preceded Pearl Jam, right? Who was this larger-than-life character who OD'd right before the band was about to hit big.
Who really was honestly probably supposed to be the front man of grunge.
Yeah, he would have been the larger-than-life character of grunge.
And if you haven't heard no, I don't even want to say it, because we're going to have to talk about it someday. And honestly, Apple by Mother Love Bone is one of my favorite albums of all time. And if you haven't heard it, you're an idiot. Musicality is amazing. Jerry Cantrell led off the C-sharp tuning guitar phenomenon. We're going to go to lyrics, and I want to start with Rachel.
The one that hit first used to be curious. Now the shit's sustenance.
Brutal.
It really hit me that he's not doing this because he wants to. He's doing it because he needs to. And that's the definition of addiction.
One of the last interviews he ever said was he doesn't get high anymore. He's just maintaining. He's just living. That's just how he lives. This is the hard part about going on this album is I really want to just start reading off lyrics.
There's so much.
There really is. I could go and go and go, and it's pretty fucking disturbing. The biggest take on that would be the Dirt. The song Dirt, the namesake of this album. I'll read one lyric, and I even prepping for this, I don't even like, it's a hard listen. It's going to be a hard say, but this is kind of the pinnacle of what this album was about. And that is, I want to taste dirty, a stinging pistol in my mouth, on my tongue. I want you to scrape me from the walls and go crazy like you made me. I can't think of a more disturbing lyric than that. Lane had a girlfriend that he had been very close with that ended up ODing way before him.
Yeah.
Demarie, who I think about half this album was probably about. But one of the reasons I like this is because he didn't turn this into some sort of breakup album. He turned it into a heroin album because he knows that, and probably because of his own actions, that you don't do the things you do because you are a specific personality. You do the things you do because you're an addict,
right?
Which his girlfriend was.
I think this was a Staley quote. It might have been Cantrell, but I think it's Staley. Someone was interviewing them about this album, and they asked him what it's about. And he said, drugs are bad. Relationships are bad. This album's good. It was like his therapy.
That should have been the intro sentence. Thanks a lot, Evil. I really do think that this is one of the best studies of all time in a piece of art that establishes a feeling.
If anyone has ever done, I'm not saying that I have, psychedelic drugs of any kind.
Nah.
There is this alteration of perception that you go through. At some point, you come back to reality. The charge is that you integrate whatever experience you had while you were in that different space. The music of this era was like a cultural shift on par with that, where things shifted to this different way of being for a little bit. Not all, because there was some fucking garbage music that came out around this time too. But there were some bands that were doing something that had never been done before, very different. And then it sort of shifted back into reality. What can we take away from this? What do we learn from this? Going back and listening to this album today in 2022, many years later, I'm like, what can I pull from that era into my life today? I feel fortunate that I can dig back into it because there's something there that you can't get anywhere else.
Absolutely. We're going to do some awards and categories. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Somebody as low level as me would get fired quickly.
Yeah, that's probably true. Awards and categories, everybody. Let's get into it. Let's talk about some dirt.
Let's do it.
DMX Award. Rach.
Dave. Just kidding. That felt weird. Sorry. David. DMX Award. They were at the forefront of grunge and they integrated metal into that. And also more than I can think of dealt with really fucking dark shit. So they win all of those things.
I think you're absolutely right. Alice in Chains doesn't get enough credit for the fact that they were kind of the first they were the first band to make it massive out of Seattle. Man in the Box was before
that was
fucking
89?
Smells Like Teen Spirit. Evil. What about you for the DMX Award?
What? Everything? Like what?
Words.
You can't. I don't know how you subtract one piece from this puzzle and it retaining even a quarter of what it is. There's so much a sum of their parts. Unfortunately, one of those pieces was heroin and the addiction. That was a big piece of it. I have a hard time reconciling how creative certain musical artists are because of heroin usage. It bothers me. I wanted to talk about this a little bit earlier. I kind of lost my thread there, but I don't know if it has to do with how dire of a mental situation these humans are in that it makes them confront their own mortality and the art springs forth from there. I don't know what it is. I consider myself an artist and I want to make great art and I'm never going to do heroin.
I was going to say, well, there's only one thing you can do, Evil.
No, like it's undeniable how integral that substance was to what these guys were doing at this point in time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be some sort of science to that, being able to access different emotions and different sides of your brain.
Lanigan, Cobain, Staley, I mentioned Bradley Knowles, completely different genre, but
Perry Farrell, who's still alive somehow.
Scott Weiland. I mean,
Scott Weiland, fucking Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix,
yeah. You name the jazz musician from there's something there that I don't want to explore. I think that's what it is I don't want to explore that. I'm just mad that I can't see what's behind the door that has the big H on it.
I totally get it. And I think I've been there many times in my life. Yep. The uniqueness for me in Alice in Chains, besides Jerry's brilliance, just the way that they used Lane's vocals. It was an entire instrument, 6 or 7 harmonies. It was
layers.
2/5 of the song. Bands tried to do it forever after them and could never pull it off. And with that, I got to go back to the David Crosby Met Award because I tell you, you motherfuckers, you are going to love this.
Oh, no. You found one?
Oh, yes.
There were a surprisingly fairly good amount of 1 stars on Dirt.
What?
Idiots.
Yes. This is 1 star by Kelsey.
Kelsey, you dumb bitch.
Yawn. Give me real grunge like Stained any day of the week.
This is parody. It has to be parody.
So I decided to listen. This was in 2008. So I decided to listen to this album because I heard it was an amazing grunge album. Man, I was so disappointed. It was simply awful. Not one good song on it. All the songs sound exactly the same. Seriously, folks, the guitar riffs are unimaginative and uninspired, and this Lane Staley guy is a horrible singer.
This is parody.
Fuck off.
He sounds
Oh
like
my
a
God.
whining puppy or something. Listen to real grunge like Stained or Daughtry.
This is performance art. This is
not
straight
real.
parody. This isn't real. I can't.
Alice in Chains is lame post grunge.
Post grunge. What the?
That is your David Crosby medal.
That's not real.
Look,
What a dumb
everybody,
idiot.
I'm going to agree. If you want real grunge, go listen to Daughtry.
On it.
Because
Thanks for the advice.
that's where it's at.
Oh my god.
Evil. Overrated, underrated, properly rated in its time and currently.
I think it's properly rated in both. It was highly regarded at the time, and I think it has maintained that through today and into the future. I do. I feel like it is anyway.
I think when I post this, not that that is what calculates, but when I post this an Instagram of the album Dirt, it's going to be in like the top 5
Yeah.
of Instagrams I've posted.
It should be.
And I think that, I don't want to say unfortunately, that's great. Everybody like it and subscribe and follow and whatever the fuck. But edit that out.
Yeah, properly rated. They were nominated for a good handful of awards. They won Spin Best Album. Since that one is a reader, listener, fan voted one, I think that one means a lot. And like you said, going platinum so many times so far after the fact.
Yeah.
People still like it.
Influences and influencees, right back to you, Rachel.
Influences, I'm going to take all of them. I'm going to just try not to take them all. AC/DC, Slayer, Van Halen, Black Sabbath.
No, you took one.
Oh.
I have 2. You took
Just-
one of my 2.
Just one of those? What's
Mhm.
okay. And
No,
then,
I agree with all those, but
okay.
I had 2 and you took one of them.
okay, influencees. I said Godsmack, Stained, Deftones. I mean, I could go on.
Stained? Stained? Stained is way more.
Fuck off, Kelsey.
How about Godsmack that literally took
name.
their name from an Alice in Chains?
Yeah.
Yeah. I will go next. I completely agree. The only one that you didn't say that I want to say, because I do think that Jerry took some stuff from this guy, and I love that, is Ted Nugent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Cantrell has a lot of Nugent sound in it. Evil, what about you?
I'm going to add Jimi Hendrix to that because he was trying to get a
Oh.
Jimi
Sure.
Hendrix sound when he wrote
That
Rooster.
Vox-wah.
He was on
Yes.
acid and trying to sound like Hendrix. Hendrix, acid, Slayer, and heroin. That's Alice in Chains.
And Lane, I think that Jim Morrison was a big
Ooh, that's
Oh,
a
sure.
good
influence
pull.
on Lane Staley.
Nice.
I really do.
That's
Yeah.
a very good pull.
It's a lot of that low,
Yeah.
fuck you-ish kind of whatever.
I have an influencee that is going to blow your mind a little bit.
I love it.
Tool.
Love it.
Yeah.
2 songs in particular. Dirt, number 1. There's Tool vibes all over in Dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hate to Feel, it was bugging me for so long. I was listening to it over and over. I'm like, this is fucking reminding me of something so much. And I couldn't place it. And it finally, it clicked yesterday. And it's a track of 10,000 Days. There's a couple of spots in their track, Rosetta Stoned. There's this syncopation between the guitar and Maynard's vocals that reminds me so much of Hate to Feel that I was like, that's it.
Never mind the Bullocks Award. I'm actually extremely interested in this one. Someday we're going to do an Alice in Chains dissection, and we're going to have to figure out a bunch of things, like if post Lane Staley counts, which I don't want to do. I do think this is their best album. This is not my favorite Alice in Chains album, believe it or not.
Whoa, really?
I will share that someday when we do an Alice in Chains dissection. If Rachel, you probably haven't listened to the few Alice in Chains albums. Is this the only one you've fully listened to?
This is the only one I fully listened to. So I can't really talk
Okay.
on this, but it is fucking fantastic.
I think it's their best.
It is. It's their best album.
You're drunk.
Facelift was brilliant. It was raw. They weren't fully formed yet. I think like this album, Dirt, is it's something special. I don't think it's their best album by far, but I think it's something special.
Rachel, what is your John Paul Jones award?
So this was a hard one. I said Cardi B. I just felt like it needed some modern rap. So
you know what? That's exactly what this album needed.
it needed some methadone. We talked about this for a second. You and I talked about the class of 99. I talked about this and you said, fuck class of 99,
yes.
which was a super band.
Morello, Porno for Pyros.
Maybe some Tom Morello.
Yeah.
I think it was so great. So I can't even think of, it was already great. It doesn't need anything.
Evil. What about you, John Paul Jones?
The subsequent, not Jar of Flies, but the subsequent album shows that you can't take away, even like in part take away pieces. Because Lane was on the self-titled, but not really. I don't think you can take any of these pieces out. It's like the late stage in a game of Jenga, and you're going to pull out a piece and everything's going to fall apart. And that's kind of what happened.
I said, and I think it was because I've been thinking about our Halloween episode lately. The whole pre-Hate to Feel thing. Iron Gland. There's a few times, Rain When I Die, Iron Gland. There's a few times where they go super creepy with it. I want Disaster Piece joining the fray to make it super fucking eerie. That's the person that did the It Follows soundtrack.
Yeah.
They did this really good circusy, eerie thing with this album. I wanted to even...
like push it even further.
10 to 11. That's what I want. I don't want to change anything about that. The Teach 'em Young Award. Rachel, what would you show your son as early as you could on this album?
As early as I could. The Rooster. He
Wow.
wouldn't need.
Welcome to the United
He
States,
needs to learn about
kid.
Vietnam. He's 11.
I said would.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go to my daughter and I'm going to say, hey, you want to hear the perfect rock song? This is it.
That's probably the right answer, but I have wood listed for some other stuff. So I put Down in a Hole because it feels a little more accessible for someone younger, less heroin involved, more about relationships.
There was no heroin in Rooster.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of heroin in Vietnam.
But it wasn't mentioned.
A lot.
Down in a Hole was surprising to me. Going back and listening to it, of the singles, it was the one that I listened to over and over. And I'm like, oh my God, this is such a good song. I was surprised how good it was looking back.
John Popper Award for the best hook. To me, it is The End of Wood. Am I wrong? Have I gone too far to get home?
Dude.
The change from this open, empty minor to this major, full, drum fill, knock you on your ass. That is my best hook. Am I wrong, Rachel?
I don't think you're wrong. I think we're all right in this because there are, like you said, there are so many. I said, yeah, they come to Snuff the Rooster because that's what got stuck in my head.
Everything is a rooster for you.
You just wait. More rooster to come.
Whatever. Evil, what about you?
I want you to just keep preaching on Wood because the outro is one of the best moments on the whole record. They build and layer tension, and then that outro is just, it is so satisfying.
The John Prine Best Lyric Award. Lucky me, now I'm set. Little bug for a pet. There's something about that visualization. I already read Dirt, and God's name is smack for some. Can't get high or you will die. I could just go like this forever, and I'm not going to. I'm going to go to Evil.
This is the lyrics genius. The way he performed it made it timeless. And it's the lyric in Rooster, Gloria sent me pictures of my boy. That is haunting and has been that way for me since I was 16.
Rachel?
Hey, those lyrics in Rooster are great. I just wanted to read the rest of that, where it goes from there. Because I remember thinking that was the start of... Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to change what I wrote because I already used those lyrics. So I'm going to change it to something else. I had written down, used to be curious, now that's just sustenance, which is amazing.
Amazing.
I'm going to switch it to some of the lyrics from Wood, and I'm going to go a little deeper into this in a second. And it's the chorus where it says, into the flood again, same old trip it was back then. So I made a big mistake. Try to see it once my way. the way that song was set up is there were 2-line verses and then it went right into the chorus repeatedly. And it just set up this really good visual for relapsing. There was so little in between the relapsing that it was heart-wrenching, as my friend Eva would say.
And there was one other line that I want to bring up. I don't know if I want to just talk about it because it speaks a lot to me or because I feel like it might be important, whatever. But there is a line in Hate to Feel that is gotta change, set a date. And it is this user's feeling. I've been there, I've never been a heroin addict, so calm down, mom. But I have been addicted to things and I have had problems, and I think most people have. And there's this very, very serious, Monday, I'm going to that's when I'm going to do it. I need one more night of getting fucked up and being hungover and stuff, and then I'll be at it. There's something about just right in the middle of this massive, massive drug problem. He's having bugs for pets and he's climbing the walls and shit. I'm going to change. I just need till the 15th.
It's that false hope.
Yes, exactly. In your hardest of hearts, you aren't going to do it. It's not going to happen.
You're telling yourself a story because it makes you feel better in the moment.
One more thing. In that song as well, stare at me with empty eyes and point your words at me. Mirror on the wall will show you what you're scared to see. So you have this visual of him staring at his doped out self. It's just this amazing visual that anyway, it's fucking amazing.
Evil. Eddie Van Halen Award.
Who?
A little aside before I answer that.
Before you drink.
After they finish their tour with Van Halen, I'll drink after I finish this. Cantrell became very good friends with both Sammy and Eddie. He was talking gear with Eddie, and Eddie's like, "Oh, I'll send you some stuff," because, all the EVH gear. And
that's Eddie Van Halen, people.
I think Cantrell had mentioned how he liked the sound of the 5150 equipment, and Eddie's like, "Yeah, I'll send you some stuff." Cantrell's crashing somewhere, I think at a different manager's house, and he shows up and there's like a garage full of gear. It's full of gear. Eddie just sent him like multiple full stacks, like guitars, just sent him all of this stuff, which I thought that's always fucking cool. Yeah. Them Bones. That riff is a juggernaut, and what a way to open the album. It's 4/3 of a Cardi B song.
Rachel, Eddie Van Halen Award.
There were so many. I think I landed at the riff towards the middle end, the second half of Sick Man. There's like this November Rain vibe, and it kind of goes from that into this like
Choke on Me, my friend.
Real pretty.
Yeah. This might be the first time I've chosen a guitar solo for the Eddie Van Halen Award. And it's the Them Bones guitar solo.
Dude, yes.
The fucking guitar solo in Them Bones is one of the best guitar solos I've ever heard. I said at the very beginning of the episode, I'll say it again. It is the leanest rock song I've ever heard.
Yep.
The guitar solo, samesies.
Samesies.
Surfer Rosa Award. This album's a journey to me. This album is an amazing flow. Rachel.
I felt like musically it was well balanced. There was nothing shitty, so I can't really judge one side any harsher than the other, even though I liked certain songs towards the end, I think a little bit more than the beginning. But yeah, the journey of I'm on heroin, lots of heroin, don't do heroin anymore. It told a story. There was a theme and it was good.
This is a thought that I set aside earlier. It's not so much a side A versus side B. It's a pitting the singles that have sort of existed in public consciousness versus the deeper cuts. So for me, you mentioned having a Discman. Here's a really interesting thing that happened to me. So when I had this album, I had a Discman, but I had no way to play it like in my car. So I had to make like mixtapes. And so I had like tapes of like the singles mixed with other songs from other bands and stuff. And so those are the things that I've known deeply for a long time. And the deeper cuts I haven't listened to since the early mid 90s. And so when I went back to research this and listen to this album, it was very interesting because it was this mix of songs that I know like the back of my hand and things that I knew way back in the day, but I hadn't heard forever. So they were a little dusty. They were a little dirty, if you will. So the album was split into two sides for me, not like side A, side B, Surfer Rosa Award, but split into two different sections of songs. And that was really, really weird. The hits, the singles they're fresh. I experienced them as I am today. That was an interesting experience.
Time of Your Life Award, right back to you, Evil. What is the worst track on this album?
This is cheating, but I'm going to say Iron Gland, mostly because it wasn't a real track.
Even when it's
cheating.
Slayer Boy?
Yeah, but it's not, it fits in the album. It fits as a track in the album.
It does.
But if you pull it out as its own thing, it's not as compelling or as interesting. I wouldn't just like throw that in a mixtape. Like I didn't back then.
Rachel.
Controversial. Rain When I Die.
Whoa.
Ooh.
And I think this was the one that was written by Erwan.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe for me, it didn't feel as a singular thought as much as the other ones did. Maybe it felt more
Interesting.
jumbled to me. And I'm just going to blame it on the fact that everybody had their hand in the pot on this one. Liked
Wow.
it. It was just my least favorite of.
Evil, wasn't that what you picked as her favorite?
No.
Down in a Hole
No.
is what you picked as her
Down in
favorite.
a hole. Interesting. Speaking of like who wrote what, Mike Starr, I think he was quoted as saying that Fear the Voices, which didn't make the album cut, was he wrote that. That was his song. And Cantrell was like, I don't want that on there because he had zero Cantrell fingerprints on it.
I mean, it also wasn't as good as the other.
It's
Dirty.
not as good either.
No.
Yeah.
My Time of Your Life Award, I actually think if I had to pick an album, Svend song, that was, if I had to pick a song
Alcohol.
that was not my favorite on this and that maybe took a pause to the album and dragged it along, it would be Sick Man. If it was on any other album, it would be amazing. But the fact that it's on Dirt, it's like a piece of silver in between fried gold. It's just not, it's not as beautiful as I'd want. Evil, what are your three best songs on this album?
I hate that question.
I do too.
I know what my number one is.
Doing it.
The number one is Rooster.
What?
We've established that. The other two, God damn it. There's three that I want to pick from, but I don't know how to pick from those three.
But you have to. That's a part of the game. That's why we do the podcast.
Wood and Them Bones.
So, Rooster, Wood, Them Bones.
Rooster's number one.
I think Them Bones is number one. Oh, that was my pick for your favorite.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That was a good pick, but Rooster's number one.
Rachel.
David. Okay, you guys are all wrong. You're both wrong on my guess. Not that they were bad guesses. Number 3.
Was my second guess?
What was your second guess?
Rooster.
Rooster.
No. Sorry.
Whoa. I'm intrigued.
Great song though. Number 3, Hate to Feel.
Wow.
That was my pick for you. Can I tell you why?
Yeah.
I thought there was so much about that song that you would hate. The terseness and the dirty and the growliness of it, but there's so much visualization. Little bug for a pet and him just laying in his bed with a plate growing mold. Like, I just thought the visualization of that song.
You know me so well.
Apparently not.
But my thoughts on it, you're spot on. Just because it wasn't my favorite doesn't mean you don't know me as a person. I picked this one for the vibe. I didn't love the music. What an aching feeling to want to please and be loved and be accepted by your parent and for them to be a complete piece of shit.
Yeah.
Aching is such a good descriptor for this.
Yeah, he reunites with his dad after 22 years and he's like, yay, Dad, you were a piece of shit before, but now you're in my life and it's going to be great. And then his dad's like, let's do drugs together. And it had this Mitch Winehouse vibe to it that I was like, fuck this guy. This is not loving your kid and all your kid wants is your acceptance. It just really hit me really hard. Moving forward. Number 2.
But wait, there's more.
There's more. Junkhead. Again with the visuals. It made you get into the middle of a drug deal as that was going on.
Yeah.
And it made you see how they're feeling. You know, he says, what's your drug? And then he's like, what do you got? Like, I'll take whatever I can get my hands on.
That's the worst. What's my drug of choice? What have you got? I don't go broke. I do it a lot.
Yeah.
I will just do anything forever. Sorry, but that's painstaking.
It is, but it helps you get in there and see how important being high is to an addict. Gets you to feel what they're feeling, and really, really empathize. Number 1 was Wood. Sorry. So good. You know, it was in singles. And so it was something that I remember from the early 90s, but going back on the way it was written, the ups and downs of addiction and relapsing and getting better was written so well.
Yeah. All right. My 3 favorites. Number 3 is Dirt. There's just something about the odd and terse guitar of that song mixed with the kind of demented lyrics of it. It's one of the most dark and twisted songs I've ever heard. Number 2 is Them Bones. I've said it. I think it's one of the most perfect rock songs ever written. I think it's the 4th time I've said it. There's no fat on that meat. And then my number 1 is the number 1 that I thought might be Rachel's long shot, but Hate to Feel.
Wow.
There's something about Hate to Feel that's every guitar part, every lyric, every harmonization is so beautiful and dark and twisted and weird that it's just amazing. Rachel's swatted away her last fly. We're almost done. Now we go to who won the album, Rachel?
Heroin.
Heroin won the shit out of
Going
this
back
album.
to accidentally glamorizing things, just speaking about it puts it in people's vision. When you talk about things like this and you're still alive, it just makes it okay. Not their fault. Again, I'm not putting this at all on them. They were just writing what they knew.
No, they knew it.
Ugh.
Evil.
Heroin's the right answer. I don't know how to word it differently. I'm going to try to lighten things up just a little bit.
Good luck.
Aw.
In The Simpsons, Mr. Burns
Go on.
at one point said, I'd give it all for a little more. And I'm like, that is this album. I
Yeah.
feel like Lane sacrificed everything and this album was the result. And we get to celebrate it, but he doesn't.
That's good.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to lighten things up, but that didn't work out very well.
Good job, Eva. This was actually kind of a trick because it wasn't in my top 3 favorite songs, but I think the winner of this album was Wood. One of the greatest rock songs that ever was. And I will forever, if it's a bass player, if it's a guitar player, if it's a drummer, if it's a singer coming to me to learn something, I will show them Wood. Rate the album. Let's go to Evil. Evil. Rate this album.
This is a masterpiece. This is a 10. This is an album that is greater than the sum of its parts. It existed in a time of elevated music and was at the top of that heap. Go Heroin.
I like it.
Oh, Jesus.
Go Heroin.
You can't say
Rachel.
that.
You say
I
whatever.
wanted to give this a 10 out of 10 so bad. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I don't know. I'm just a mean asshole.
You know, there's fractional.
David doesn't let me do fractions. I
Score.
wanted to do
Why
a
though?
9.5.
I have no.
You could break-
When have I ever said no? You can't do 9.5.
You've told me before, David.
Okay,
Fine,
At least
9.5.
give a reasoning.
There were still parts that I didn't think were perfect. And so that's why I didn't give it a 10 out of 10. I loved it so much. It just wasn't perfect.
I honestly do think that this album puts you in the place of an addict better than anyone ever. Not just because this is Alice in Chains and fucking love them, Lane Staley, bloop blop. This is a 10 out of 10 because it deserves to be a 10 out of 10. I gave it 10 out of 10 hypodermic needles. Good job, Alice in Chains.
David.
Yo, what? He's been dead for so long, Rachel.
David.
What?
Too soon.
Too soon. No. That's it. That's Dirt. We did Dirt. We did pretty good,
Mm-hmm.
right?
God,
I feel good about it.
I don't feel good about anything.
All right.
This album doesn't make me feel good, but I love it.
Heroin sucks, you guys. Join us next week. We're going to do 1992, and we're going to talk about a time where there was barely any heroin anywhere. Firstcourseverse.com at firstcourseversepod. Thank you, everybody. You guys are awesome. Rachel, you're my favorite. Thank you so much. I am sorry if this album made you sad.
It was okay. Fine.
Evil.
Drugs are bad, okay?
There we go. That's perfect. Everybody, you're amazing. Good night and good luck.
Don't do heroin.
Don't ever do heroin.
David.